Hello and welcome back to the Second Chance to Live channel here on YouTube. I'm happy to see that you decided to stop by to watch this video presentation. In today's video presentation, I'm going to be sharing part 3 of a 3-part article series that I wrote several days ago, almost a week ago. I would encourage you to watch parts 1 and part 2 of this video series in addition to watching part 3, because parts 1 and part 2 build upon part 3. As you listen to the article being read and questions come to mind, please send those questions to me. All questions are good questions. In the event that you'd like to leave a comment, I would also love to hear from you. You may leave your question or comment here on YouTube in the comment section, or through my contact information page on Second Chance to Live at secondchancetolive.org. To read the article, I'll put on my glasses and bring the article up. I want to thank you again for your time. You're always welcome both here on my YouTube channel and at Second Chance to Live at secondchancetolive.org. Here's the article. Is the group that you are in hurting you? Are you being bullied? In my experience, I found the below to be true. I had no idea that I had been bullied in previous groups of control and manipulation, with the threat of being abandoned, ostracized, ridiculed, rejected, and alienated. Because I was unaware and did not know any different, I allowed myself to be abused by the repercussions of such compliant conditioning. And as I shared in part 2 of this article series, I believe that is a term that I coined, compliant conditioning, as I've done some research and could not find another person that did that. If you know of someone that has coined that term, please let me know. And we'll continue with the article. That is why I explain what I discovered in part 1 and part 2 of this article. That is why I would encourage you to read part 1 and part 2 of the article, my friend, in addition to part 3. And in the article, I share links to part 1 and part 2 of the article. I would encourage you to watch parts 1 and part 2 of this article. I will include links to those particular parts of the video series in the article that I'll write and post here on Second Chance to Live. Now for part 3 of the article. Some additional insights. Moreover, when individuals seek to integrate socially, similar contingencies or compliant conditioning can be seen deployed. If the individual does not comply with the group's covert or overt expectations, the previously set trigger is tripped. The individual again is led to believe that they must discard parts of themselves in order to embrace what is expected of them. In the event that such expectations are used to control and manipulate the individual, with the threat of being ostracized, rejected, abandoned, alienated, or some other form of reprisal, red flags appear. The red flags need to be taken note of if and when leaders or members of the group begin placing increasing expectations on you, with repercussions if you don't fulfill those expectations. If you notice this dynamic occurring with increasing frequency, the leaders and members of the group may not be good for you. In my experience, I had to become aware of these dynamics before I could begin to separate myself from the emotional and spiritual impact of such dynamics. In my experience, I had to separate myself from the group's dynamics before I could begin to learn to love and accept myself as an individual. In my experience, I had to separate myself from such group dynamics before I could begin to see myself as valuable as an individual. In my experience, I had to separate myself from these group dynamics before I could begin to use my gifts, talents, and abilities as an individual in ways that would work for me. In my experience, I had to recognize when I was being shamed into doing by such group dynamics, subtly as it may have been, before I could begin to learn how to stop doing and start being as an individual. In my experience, I've come to recognize the groups who use compliant conditions to control and manipulate their members are not good for me. I've come to realize that these groups are not healthy for me. In my experience, I've come to realize that by physically detaching myself from these groups, I take care of myself. I do not place any judgment on the leaders or members of these groups, as judging benefits no one. Instead, I've come to realize that by practicing the principle of live and let live, I am able to keep the focus on myself and go about my business. By keeping the focus on myself, I am able to attend to my business as I feel led by a loving God. By keeping the focus on myself, I am able to use my gifts, talents, and abilities in ways that work for me. By keeping the focus on myself and attending to my business, I am able to stay centered. By keeping the focus on my own business, I am able to stay committed to my mission and vision as an individual. This is the end of part 3 of the article series and the conclusion of the article series. I want to thank you for watching part 1 and part 2, in addition to watching part 3 of this article series. I want to say that I appreciate you being a friend of Second Chance to Live. I would love to hear from you. Please do send me a comment and let me know how you're doing, or if you have a question, send that to me. I'd love to hear from you. I'll say so long for now, but before I do, let me encourage you with something that I need to remember. Please do not give up on yourself, your process, or a loving God, because more will be revealed in time. The pieces of the puzzle will come together in the correct order and at the right time. Your best days are out in front of you. I'll say so long for now. God bless both you and your family, and thank you again for your time. So long now.